This is a song for my friends Jaret and Gary. They started a podcast and said a theme was necessary. They're just a couple of guys in a band that you know. Some rockstar dads who started a show. So here's the next episode.
Welcome back to the Rockstar Dad Show, and Gary, I'm excited. I can't believe I got this guy first try. Actually, I saw. Well, let's just bring him on. This is Shane Cuthbert. He's coming in from down under. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. Thanks so much for having me here.
It's 3:00 in the morning there, and he got up to do this. We're just at lunchtime here. You know?
I don't know, man. 3:00 in the morning interviews. That doesn't sound fun. Thanks for coming on. That's crazy.
Goodness gracious, man. I remember back in the day of when we were doing hardcore press for everything, and it was like, okay, you've got this Australian interview at 4:30, and then you've got in the morning, and then Japan wants to do 9:00 at night, and just crazy. But listen, here's the deal. I was going through Instagram, and I was just very intrigued by a guy telling his story. It's this dude. He looks like us. He's tattooed from the neck down. He's got cool hair. He looks like he could be in a band. I think he is. I think, Shane, I think you are a musician. But the story that you were telling really affected me. I mean, it for days. It really, I was almost in tears. I was mad. I just, and I don't expect you to go into all that because you told that story then, and I want to get into more, mental health and being a dad and all that. But essentially, you were in prison, and and lived that life. And how long were you in prison?
Man, I was not there very long. 6 months was the longest, and I've been 4 times.
Okay.
So only short periods, but I had a particularly rough time there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He. So again, you were abused. Physically, sexually, mentally by, and it just, God, I mean, just to see how you've come out on the other side of that. So obviously, you were in for, I believe, like petty crimes, right?
Yeah. DUIs.
Yeah.
We call it drink driving here, but I think where you guys are, that DUIs, running away from the police, that sort of thing, probably not worth going to prison for, but people end up there.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and things that I'm now actively trying to change here where I am. I actually, so yesterday I was speaking to our parliament here, so our government, our senators, sit down, and they were doing a victims of crime inquiry and wanted to speak to me about some of the things that happened to me in prison because they want to try and change that. Mm-hmm. Because we know that when things like that happen, we can't expect those people to then be released and go back out into society and be, amazing human beings. They're dealing with a lot of trauma. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will go back to, drug use. And for me, I was, I had a bit of a rough, childhood. Put up a post the other day. Me and my brother, when I was about 5 years old, we were sleeping under a doormat together. Mm-hmm. And what happened is playing drums saved me. So I played in punk rock bands, and when I was 15 years old, so I was in high school, I got asked to go on my first tour all the way around Australia. So here I am, I'm a 15-year-old kid, not allowed to drink legally. Or do anything. I'm still a kid, and I'm playing drums in punk bands and traveling around Australia. And I did that for years. Always thought I was going to be a big rock star. It doesn't happen for all of us. unfortunately. But, happy just living that life. And, I got to a point where I was in my early 20s and just wasn't really going anywhere. Playing in a lot of bands, and you go from band to band to band, and for the most part, most bands don't make it. You might get some support gigs. We did some really cool stuff, played big venues, did a few festivals, and then I think there's that childhood trauma, but also the depression that sets in. Mm-hmm. I remember my first tour, I didn't understand what depression was. I was on such a high thinking, here I am, I'm a rock star, I've made it, I'm getting on planes and going to the other side of the country. Mm-hmm. I could choose whichever girl I wanted to take back to the hotel that night, and you're with all your friends, and you are drinking and partying, and it's all fun. And then you go home. And I remember going home, for me, and a lot of guys that I know, was just such a drag. It was, wow, you've just gone from this ultimate high, and you've got to go home. And if you're lucky, you go out on another tour and another one, and I did for a while, but then it got to the point where it stopped. And that's difficult to deal with. So, I turned to, just really, I didn't really turn to anything. I just kept that lifestyle going as long as I could. So even though I wasn't out on tour, I was going out partying, drinking, drugging.
Well, I mean, that's honestly, that's what happens, right? I mean, we're given this life of excess, and you give it early on. As you said, you don't have any money in those days, but you've got all the alcohol you want. If you want drugs, you got them. If you want members of the opposite sex or the same sex or whatever, that's there. Really, whatever you want. If you need a place to stay, you got a bed to sleep in. And when you come back home from that, and you don't have some sort of system in place, to keep you grounded. I think that's what happens to a lot of people, and no matter what the level is, go ahead.
There's a weird flip switch there's got to be of, like, when you're on tour and you're partying all night and you break shit and you do something stupid and whatever, everyone just laughs and it's expected. They're partying, right? But you go home and you stay out all night partying and you break shit and you do stupid stuff, and then you sleep till 3 p.m. And it's like, man, that dude's an asshole and he's a loser.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
This is a song for my friends Jaret and Gary. They started a podcast and said a theme was necessary. They're just a couple of guys in a band that some rockstar dads who started a show. Until the next episode.